Presentation begins with the purpose of the study and literature defining agency. I go on to discuss application of theory about conducting research and then to methodology. And at the end, there's a bibliography of sources mentioned. This study applies my recent experience practicing supply teaching, which is ongoing, to the theory of agency. The theme of our conference being theory and practice, this study has the goal of seeking an understanding of how a small group of teachers use agency in and for themselves. And indirectly later will help students because they will improve their own practice. It examines the potential for a practicing teacher to respond to the theoretical notion of agency. Some recent graduates, new supply teachers, summer school teachers, daily occasional teachers, and LTOs can find their work unpredictable and isolating. They seek cohort communities and direction for a practice in which they sometimes feel vulnerable. I made an effort myself to improve my experience as a supply teacher by reaching out horizontally to any helpful sources. Natasha Pantic and Euro Engstrom, who write about collaborative work in organizations, call for agency that is effective or transformational. And which is what I felt I direly needed in my practice. Yeah. I want to know whether other supply teachers are aware of outside support in the organization and why and how they might use it. This kind of study is a systems study, I find, looking at the effectiveness of support in the workplace. I'm just going to talk about the qualitative methodology before I look at the readings for a moment to let you have a clearer idea of the study. It will involve interviews of supply teachers at the school where I work. It involves observing their interactions at a staff meeting and an online survey of occasional teachers throughout the school board where I'm working. So it's informed by activity theory as workers within an organization transform practice, as I mentioned. So on this slide, I've mentioned some authors' names. I'm going to briefly talk about them, not in the same order because I did the slides and then I changed a bit of this talk. I first encountered the notion of agency in 2020 in work from Harvard and San Diego, and they recommend reading Martinez Vargas, writing about agency, identity, and equity in diverse communities. I'm going down to the fourth one, Haspari, Engstrom, and Carosio look at general workplace studies and agency and find it aligned to work satisfaction, goal-related activity, socially learned, and enacted in the present, revealing the actor's intentions for the future. On this slide, the quote from Kay Dar and others describe agency as a sociocultural concept embodying jointly constructed learning. And on the slide, the quote from Laura Ahern describes agency as engendered by dialogue, the socioculturally mediated capacity to act, and its appropriate definition in a social setting like a school. Min and others, 2022, study three elements of agency: conditions in the school, teacher self-belief, and teacher experience. And I'll discuss this later, specifically in relation to Bandura, who, as we know, has written that book on agency. Pantic recognizes in teacher agency a sense of purpose, competence, and reflexivity, and interagency is another element. And my present study looks for behavior that embodies these traits. Professionals who are agentic describe what they are doing in a rational way, elaborating on the reasons behind their actions. And I will be asking supply teachers about their present actions and future goals, their purposeful behavior and reflections. Toom, Piolto, and Rust researchers concur that agency uses internal processes such as attitudes, emotions, and cognition. So a practitioner shows an initial understanding of agency, the theory, internally processing the concept, then moves in a certain direction towards transformative change. School boards are aware of the power of agency and create appropriate and practical resources to enable direction and purpose. And here on this slide, I've grouped three groups. I grouped them as people, online, and written, which I used all the time as a supply teacher. The online chat room was closed down by the board in March. unfortunately. Research questions, they do reflect work by activity theorists who, they do reflect the type of research questions that I saw used by activity theorists, Engstrom and Pantic, which I was happy about to know I'm sort of on the right track with that. We turn to a discussion of theory. So looking at the top half of the slide, we see Bandura's description of teaching as a service where one interacts collaboratively. Teachers have self-efficacy, a feeling of their own worth. And in plurilingual theory, Michael Byram notices the same self-efficacy in language teachers who are positively and socially involved with others and who develop confidence and communicative competency. So in the methodology, to set the stage for the interview with the supply teacher about agency, I start positively by reminding participants of their self-efficacy. The bottom half of the slide in red lettering reflects the reality of working within an organizational system. It is a policy document within the Waterloo Region District School Board listing, well, they had listed 13 workplace supports. I've chosen 2 that are affordances to self-efficacy and purposeful goals. This slide is intended to introduce 2 theoretical topics that I would like to discuss before I go on to methodology. The top half of the slide refers to the theory of developmental social constructivism, where learners, young and old alike, are understood to construct their own knowledge based on patterns they see in personal experience. This theory represents my epistemic orientation, and it is how I approach, therefore, the qualitative epistemological lens of the methodology. Developmental constructivism grants a wide range of learning lenses: social, emotional, physical, psychological, cognitive. I'm going to have to learn from teachers, so I'm using my own favorite learning lenses, which are the social, physical, and cognitive. So my methodological design lies in physical observation of social behavior, to which I apply my memory to find the patterns, co-constructing my own learning. And I also include this type of method for the participants, who will also be involved in social, physical, and cognitive learning, because I'm asking them to talk to me about their opinions and ideologies, talk to me about their future directions in their career, and recall influential past experience. And so the methodology's epistemological focus is on dialogical sharing of interpersonal experience as teachers act in practical ways to improve practice. The bottom half of the slide refers to the value that I place on idiosyncratic events or phenomena in shaping the methodology. I note small complementary phenomena described by the teacher which hold potential to create change. A research focus on phenomena is partly an ontological belief about reality, of the power of recalling and seeing patterns in small events. And when changing one's practice, one looks at small events. Phenomena have subjective significance, but a practicing teacher can see significance in seemingly insignificant events. A research focus on phenomena is supported by capability theorists, such as Martinez Vargas, who I mentioned earlier, and she requests we respect ontological variation research. So I now turn to methodology.
You have 5 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
right,
okay.
right. Thanks. I've got 1 page, so I think I'll make it. The research setting is the Urban Waterloo Board, where I'm a supply teacher. And I expect about 15 participants in this study. And there's 3 data sources. The first data source is observation of the occasional teachers' interaction at a staff meeting, the LTO. Second data source is a chat with teachers during nutrition break. I don't record the chat, but I ask them informal questions like, what are you good at as a teacher? What are your sources of learning in the workplace? And so on. The third data source is an online survey posted to all supply teachers in the board through their e-newsletter. So the slide shows 1 of 3 questions on the online survey, which will draw their attention to equity as an affordance to their practice. second question on the online survey is in draft. It's the Likert scale design developed by Larry Ludlow for system studies, asking for subjective opinions of available resources and weighing resource of answers. And which takes me on to Pantic's mention of, it's funny how when you're told that you have no more time, you lose your note. All right, almost done. Data analysis. Including the lunchroom chat, I analyze observations in terms of rational patterns of self-direction and whether the school environment provides affordances or limits agency. I look for care for self and others. And through observing teacher behavior, I look at whether supply teachers have or seek engagement with the organization. In coding the observation, I code in small moments of interagency, negotiation, and adaptation to social context. Observational anecdote summary include teachers' memories of past and present experiences as a supply teacher, their efforts at social negotiation, and personal opinions about engagement. So I expect a dozen or two small sample. So I analyzed the use that they show of resources. And cross references to the modality. Was it human, online, or written? Emergent coding is informed by activity theory, and thematic congruence is sought on the nature of how and why interactions help development in the workplace. In conclusion, 2 sentences. This work develops the concept of agency in practice. Teachers explain how and why they use resources for their own purpose, and results are shared with stakeholders, teachers, staff at the board, and parents. And I have partial ethical approval so far from the board. And I know that the stakeholders are interested in the quality of education for every teacher in the school, including supply teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, for your very interesting talk.